Hey everyone, welcome to my Super Nintendo introduction. And not only is this going to be Super Nintendo games, but we also have a couple Sega Genesis games. So, first we're going to start out in 1989. We had the Sega Genesis come out. And this is back when Nintendo was still producing games, 8-bit games, and the Sega Genesis came out with 16-bit games. So, Super Nintendo decided they had to upgrade, and they came out with their system, the Super Nintendo. And now, the Sega Genesis was technologically more advanced than the Super Nintendo, but the Genesis couldn't keep up with Nintendo's strategic, aggressive gameplay, according to the report that I've read. So that's what kept the Nintendo company ahead of the games. So far we've seen 66 Nintendo games on my channel, or I guess I should say 8-bit games on my channel, because one of them was a Sega Master System game that was Wonder Boy. All the rest of them were all Nintendo games. Now, for the 16-bit games, we're only going to see 44, so the list is getting going down a little bit. 2 of those Sega Genesis games, the rest are all going to be Super Nintendo games. So the first game we're going to start out with, it's going to be Super Mario World. And pretty much, a lot like Super Mario Bros. 3, it pretty much kept with the same idea. You got the map screen and all that. You got all these worlds. You're going to see the Koopas again, the Goombas. Pretty much most of the enemies we saw in the previous game are going to be in this game. But I think this is probably the easiest Mario game to beat. It's pretty fun though. I'd have to say out of all the Super Mario games that Super Mario 3 is probably my favorite. But this one's pretty close. It was also another good one. This one was released in 1991, by the way. Next game we're going to see Sonic the Hedgehog. Popular game on the Sega Genesis. Now this game I can't get very far in because I never played this game as a kid. So we'll just play until I can't get any further, which will probably be like between 5 to 10 minutes. Now the Super Mario game, that's going to be probably another one of those 4-hour or 3.5-hour games. So it's going to be split up probably between 4 videos. Then we're going to see Final Fight. This one was pretty popular on arcade, but as usual, once it went from arcade to the home video game systems, it kind of lost its fun. It's not too bad of a game though. I usually play up to the point where I can get into this wrestling ring with this guy with swords, and that guy ends up killing me in like one shot, so most likely play up to that point. This one's by Capcom. Then we got SimCity. This one I'm going to be using the Game Shark for, because in this one what you do is you got to build, you pretty much start out with this blank piece of land, and you start out in, it's got the year up in the corner, it's going to be 1900, January, and you just keep on building. Like, you got to start out with a power plant, you build residential zones, you click on these things, commercial zones, industrial zones, all that good stuff. And you pretty much build a city with what you got. Now they only give you 20,000 if you're playing an easy level. So I'm going to use the Game Shark, which is going to give me $60,000. And also I'll be using another feature with not the Game Shark, but the Game Genie. Nintendo and Super Nintendo had a Game Genie, which is what they used back in the old days before you can enter cheat codes. These are certain like systems, or actually they're more like cartridges. You just plug the game into the cartridge, and you plug the cartridge into the system, and it came with a booklet of cheat codes you could use. Each game had its own cheat code that did different features, so that's what we're going to be doing with this, the Game Genie. I'm going to be entering a code for starting out with $60,000 and another code where the money doesn't decrease, so that way I can build like a huge city. And it's probably going to be about an hour long, like a full hour long video. I'm just going to keep on playing. Hopefully I can get moving pretty quick, so I really don't want to do a 2-parter video. I also don't want to stop when the video or when my city's not completely done. Next we're going to see a football game, Super High Impact. This is one of the first games I played on Super Nintendo, because I had my Nintendo I got it in Christmas of '88, and I had it up till 93 93, and right around 93, the Nintendo was getting kind of old, and it was getting to the point where I was constantly taking the games out, blowing in and putting them back in. I was getting sick of it, so I decided it was time for an upgrade. So I decided to go with the Super Nintendo, and around that time I was playing this game, Super High Impact, on arcade. There was also another arcade game I played, Street Fighter 2. That's another one we're going to be seeing. But this one came out in 1991, but I started renting the Super Nintendo in 1993, right around December when I got my first job. I was 16 years old, working at Hardee's fast food, and I used every Friday spend my paychecks renting Super Nintendo and games until I finally got the Super Nintendo for Christmas that year. But yeah, Super High Impact, it's got a bunch of teams in it that aren't professional teams. They're just kind of like fictional teams, and it's kind of more of an abstract football game. You hit players, sometimes their pads just go flying everywhere, sometimes their helmets go flying off. Pretty fun game though. Usually pretty good at this game. Next we're going to see Addams Family. Now this is a game that I bought years ago. Really haven't played it since then, so might be a little rusty at this game. I really don't remember a whole lot about it because I haven't played it that much, but I recently found it in my room and decided to clean it up and try it out. 1992, Super Mario Kart. By the way, all the games we've seen previously were 1991, and every game we're going to see right here in this video, it's going to go in order of the year. So Super Mario Kart here starts in 1992, and when this game came out, well, actually I guess I shouldn't say when it came out, but when I discovered this game sometime in winter of 93, this was probably my favorite game. It was huge because it was so different. It was like 3D, where you're actually driving, and the screen moves in 3 dimensions, so it's a pretty fun game. And usually I don't like racing games. I was never really into racing, but the thing I like about this game is you can get like items like green shells, red shells, banana peels, and you can shoot them at the other racers. So I'm going to be playing against the computer in this, doing the cup, like the Mushroom Cup, which is the first one. There's Star Cup. No, Mushroom Cup, Flower Cup, and Star Cup. 3 different cups. I'm going to be playing in 50cc. Now there is also another cup that you can open called the Special Cup, but you have to beat the computer in 100cc, which I've done very few times, so I usually can't do it, but I did have a cheat code that can unlock that cup, so where you can only do time trials in it, but at least if I can find that cheat code again, we can at least unlock it so we can see the boards in there, because Rainbow Road is probably one of the best boards in that whole game. But this is a game I'm usually pretty good at, and I'm also going to show 2 players battle mode, which is where you get these 3 balloons floating around your cart, and you just keep going around trying to shoot at each other with green shells, red shells, banana peels, whatever items you got. Try to hit each other 3 times. Last person standing wins. So now when I do 2 players, I don't have a second player to play the other controller, so I'll just be controlling one, and I guess the other will just sit there. Next we're going to see Star Wars, or I guess Super Star Wars. This was a game created by Lucasfilms. The only game we've seen so far by Lucasfilms was Maniac Mansion. That was created by Lucasfilms, but published by Jaleco on the original Nintendo. Here we're going to see Super Star Wars, Super Nintendo. Now this game's kind of hard. The first board's not too hard, but what we're seeing right here is the second board, and usually I can't get very far in this. I have beaten the second board once, but it's really frustrating. This is a series of Star Wars games, which all 3 of them are pretty tough. So I'll just play until I can't get any further and quit. Baseball. Actually, Baseball 2000, its official name. This is another one I used to rent quite a bit when I was younger. Seems kind of like Super Mario Kart, the way you're, the battle mode type. You're kind of going in 3 dimensions, and you're shooting items at bad guys. And you just keep doing that until you find your exit. Eventually these guys get tougher. These yellow guys right here aren't too bad, but you get these green ones and blue ones that get a little bit more difficult. Like, I think these yellow ones just keep roaming back and forth. You get different characters. When you get close to them, they start coming after you. Some of them are like really annoying. They keep following you, and you gotta try shooting them without getting hit. Next we got Krusty's Super Funhouse. Pretty simple game, not a whole lot to it. Pretty much just want to catch all these mice, pick up these blocks and put them around so the mice can climb up, and then you got Bart over here with the smashing machine that smashes them. Next we're going to see Super Battle Tank. This is another game I recently found in my room that I used to play years ago. So, probably won't remember exactly how to play it when I first pop it in, but I guess we'll see how it goes. It used to be kind of a fun game. American Gladiators. Now we saw the Nintendo version of American Gladiators. Now we got Super Nintendo version. This game was also made by Game Tech, just like the last one. Or I guess, I don't know if it was created by Game Tech or published by Game Tech, but they're both by Game Tech anyway. This one's a little bit more like the TV show, where you can actually compete against a computer character, or you can play two players. And it's got the different events. Right here we see the sphere where you're in these big balls and you got to roll them over the targets for points. It's got pretty much a bunch of games just like the original, or like the show. And eventually you got the Eliminator at the end. So, pretty fun game, a lot better than the 8-bit version. And here we go, 1993 Tecmo Super Bowl. So far we've seen Tecmo Bowl on the Nintendo, we've seen Tecmo Super Bowl on the Nintendo, now we got Tecmo Super Bowl on the Super Nintendo. As you can see, the graphics are better, more color. Pretty much a lot like the last game we've seen as far as gameplay. I mean, it's got, you play the preseason, you can play schedule, you can do all kinds of different stuff. So I'll be playing once again as the Green Bay Packers in this, and I am not sure who I will be playing against. Maybe the 49ers. They're a pretty good team back then, and they're a pretty good team today. The Packers recently played the 49ers in the playoffs, I believe. So we'll go ahead and use the Packers in this. I'm also going to be doing full seasons of these football games once I finish all my video games. And that includes finishing all my... Well, I got my Nintendo games finished after I finish my Super Nintendo games, Nintendo 64, PlayStation games, and my PS2 games. Once I'm completely out of games to play, I'll probably go back and do some seasons of these sport games. Like probably all the Tecmo football games. I'm thinking Baseball Stars, I might do that, like a full season. And not sure yet. I got plenty of time to plan it out. But this game, I believe there were injuries, which we did not see in the previous two games. You can also fumble in this game, which didn't happen in the first Tecmo Bowl. I think Tecmo Super Bowl did have fumbles, but I don't think we've seen any in the last video, the one that I did. Next game we're going to see, Mario is missing. This is kind of a weird Mario game. In this game you're not fighting against any bad guys. Those Koopas there can't hurt you. This is more of an educational game where you go into these cities, you find these artifacts, you have to read a pamphlet that explains about these artifacts. You're actually in these real cities around the world, like Sydney, Australia, or San Francisco, California. Can't remember offhand. Anyways, there's 15 different cities you have to go through, collect these artifacts. For example, San Francisco, we're going to collect the artifact of the Golden Gate Bridge, Kuwait Tower, and the Trans-America Pyramid. Now you have to go to these information booths, return the artifact to the Golden Gate Bridge, and you got to read the pamphlet, which gives kind of like a little history lesson of the Golden Gate Bridge. And then you got to answer the questions. You got the princess at the information booth who's going to ask you questions. You got to answer them. Get them right. If you get them wrong, you have to come back like a couple minutes later, you gotta wait. It's not too bad of a game. It's kind of boring, but I've played it enough where I know pretty much most of the answers, so I should be able to get through it pretty quick. This game's probably going to take like 3 videos. It's going to be over 2 hours, maybe close to 3 hours. So it's one of those games that might be fun to rent, but I don't think many people probably beat it because they get bored with it too quickly, but it's definitely something different. Next we're going to see another game by Game Tech, Family Feud. This one's kind of fun, but like most Game Tech games, the computer is usually really tough to play against. So what I'm going to do in this game is I'm going to play against the computer. If I get beat, I'm going to go ahead and play against the second player, which I'm going to control both players. Because the best part about this game is doing the fast money round at the end. I hate it when I get beat by the computer and I don't get to get to the funnest part. Okay, next we're going to see Super Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, another one created by Lucasfilms. The cool thing about these Star Wars games is they're all created by the same company, so they're pretty much all the same as far as like the buttons. The controls are pretty much the same, the jump, attack, you have pretty much the same health meter up here and all that good stuff. So that's about the good thing about the game, but like the other game, previous game, and the next one we're going to see, they're all pretty tough to beat, or tough to get in anywhere really. Next we're going to see Street Fighter 2. This was a pretty popular game. This was on the arcade. Now there was Street Fighter 2, there was Super Street Fighter 2, there was Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Super Street Fighter 2, the new challengers. It was just, there were tons of Street Fighter 2 games created on Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and on arcade. This one is actually Street Fighter 2 Turbo. It's another one of the games I always used to rent when I first rented the Super Nintendo. You got, I'm not sure how many characters to choose from, but anyways, each character has their own moves. They pretty much all have punch, kick, and then they get their special like power move that they can each do. And then we're going to see Jeopardy! Deluxe Edition, another game by Game Tech. And this is another one that's pretty tough. I'm just going to play like one game against the computer. Probably going to take about 40 minutes usually. I might win, I might lose. Usually I lose at this game. Actually, I don't think I've beaten this one. There's another Jeopardy game we're going to see that I have beaten before, but it's rare. Next we got NBA Jam. This is kind of a fun basketball game. Kind of unique. You only got 2 players on the court for each team. And this one you actually get to pick from the NBA teams, and each NBA team has 2 players. Like, I think I'm going to be the Bulls, of course. I think they got like B.J. Armstrong and Scottie Pippen. Or maybe Torres Grant and Scottie Pippen, I don't remember. But the last time I played in this game, I actually won, so it's not too hard. Here we have Super Caesar's Palace, gambling game. It's really not a whole lot to this game. You just walk around a casino, go up to these tables, you can play slot machines, video poker, Keno, roulette, blackjack, craps, all kinds of different games. So this game I used to rent during right about this same time, December. Actually, I remember playing this game Christmas in '93. It was like, well, it was Christmas Eve, so I think it was when I first got the Super Nintendo for Christmas, opened it up, and I rented this game. It's not too bad of a game, but it's kind of boring after a while. Next we got Side Pocket. Now, apparently this game was really popular. It's a pool game. It was on arcade games. They got it on Super Nintendo. This is another one they got at Sega Genesis. And I guess it was all over. They had different versions. But pretty much a pool game. Really not much to it than that. So go ahead and give it a shot and see how we do. Got Super Battle Tank. In this game you can play the classic not Battle Tank, but Battleship. In this game you can play the classic version where you're doing like call out the letters and numbers to the computer like B2 and stuff like that. Or you can also play the other version where you're actually playing as these ships moving around. I'll go ahead and do both versions, see how we do. Kind of a fun game, but it's another one of those games that really doesn't take too long to play. This one's kind of fun, WWF, Royal Rumble. Believe it or not, this game was released or published by LJN. This is actually one of LJN's better games. Although most of the LJN games I got were on the original Nintendo, we get to the 16-bit, and we got some better games. But this one you could play one match against the computer or against a second player. You could play a tag team match, or you could do a Royal Rumble. It's a pretty fun game doing the Royal Rumble because you're competing against all these players, and it's really not that hard. It's pretty easy. But the last time I played, you got to be careful because if you take off running towards the guy, he could throw you right out of the ring, just pick you up and throw you out, and that's what happened the last time I played this game. I was the first one to get eliminated. I'll probably pick The Undertaker. I don't know why. I was never really into wrestling. I used to like it back when I was like 12 years old when Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant and Ultimate Warrior were wrestling, but once I started getting older I kind of lost interest in it. Here we got Mortal Kombat. I think everyone's heard of this game. Another popular arcade game. This one is kind of like similar to the Street Fighter games, but this one's kind of like more darker. And there's a lot of controversy about these Mortal Kombat games because there's blood in them. I don't think the first one on Nintendo, this one right here, or on Super Nintendo, I don't think this had blood in it. I think the Sega Genesis version might have. And that might be the one that the parents kind of threw a fit about, but pretty much like the Street Fighter games, it's a fighting game, they all got their special moves. The cool thing about Mortal Kombat is they got fatality moves at the end. It says finish them, and you can do a fatality move and kill them. But even though you kill these characters, you could pick them again in the next round. This is another game where you can play one or two players. Now I think I'm going to play one player against the computer, but I think I'm also going to do two players so I could try doing these fatalities. I gotta look them up though on the internet because, like I said, most of these passwords I had on my old computer, which kind of died out on me about a month ago. I had to buy this new one here. Next game we're going to see Sim Ant. This is another one of the Sim series. Now these Sims games were created by Maxis, or actually I think they were created by Electronic Arts and published by Maxis. But we're going to see a series of 5 Sims games. We're going to see 2 on the Super Nintendo, and we're going to see 3 on the PS2. And the first one was SimCity, and then now we got Sim Ant. Here you're an ant building an ant colony. You got the black ants, and you got the enemies, which are the red ants. This yellow ant is the one I'll be controlling. The black ants are just a bunch of drones from my colony. Pretty much just have to go out and get food, bring it back to your queen, try building up your ant colony. You want to get your ant colony built bigger than the red ant colony. Then what I like to do is go over to the red ant colony, kill the queen, and then eventually the rest of their ants are going to die off because my queen is going to keep laying eggs. They don't have a queen anymore to do that, so that's the way that goes. And then I guess you get winged ants too, and they can fly around and create new ant colonies, but I don't think I'm really going to play that game that long. So it's kind of a fun game though. Next we got Wheel of Fortune, another game by Game Tech. This is Wheel of Fortune Deluxe Edition. It's probably one of the worst Game Tech games I have. It's really annoying, especially playing against the computer because they always get it right. I think this one I might actually play all 3 players to make it more fun for me, so I don't get beat. But really not a whole lot to say about Wheel of Fortune. It's pretty much like the game show. Here we got Jeopardy Sports Edition, another one by Game Tech. This one I'm a little bit better at because I've had this game longer, so a lot of the answers I might get right. It's pretty much all sports, and I don't know what this timer's doing down at the corner. That's not in the real game, but the only difference between this game and the original is the characters are different looking, and this one's all about sports, whereas the other one's multiple stuff. Here we got Mortal Kombat 2. By the way, all these games we're seeing are 1993. I got tons of games from 93. Actually, I think most of my Super Nintendo games are from 93. Here we got Mortal Kombat 2, which came out kind of shortly after the first one came out. This one's got more characters in it. It's got more boards in it. This one's got the blood in it. It's got the fatalities in it. Some of these games might be rated T for teen. I will put that on my video because when we get to the PS2 games, we're going to have some, actually first PlayStation and PS2, there might be some games that are rated T for teen or rated M for mature. Go ahead and put that in the subject box with my videos in case there's concerned parents out there. Next we got the last game of 93, Super Mario All-Stars. Now this game is 4 games in one. We've got 16-bit versions of all the Mario games we've seen on the NES. So, well, except for like Wrecking Crew, that wasn't really a Mario game, even though Mario was a character in there, and NES Open Tournament Golf, even though Mario was in those games. I don't really consider those Mario games because Mario's just a character playing in another game. But anyway, here's the 16-bit version of Super Mario Brothers. I'm really not any better at this version than I was in the 8-bit version, so I probably won't get too much further. I might not even get as far as I did in the previous video. But I'll go ahead and play until I run out of lives. And then we got Super Mario Brothers: The Lost Levels, which is just like what we've seen on the Nintendo Super Mario Bros. 2, The Lost Levels. They changed to just Super Mario Bros. Lost Levels, pretty much the same thing except for 16-bit. Super Mario Bros. 2, I think, was the best improvement out of all these games on the 16-bit version, because on the 8-bit version, the Super Mario Bros. 2, the backgrounds were like so blank. It was just like one color, and in this version they got all this cool background stuff, so I think this is the best improvement as far as graphics between the previous Mario games, the 8-bit Mario games, and the 16-bit. But once again, I'm going to do a full playthrough of this game all the way to the end, and this time I'm going to go back and show some shortcuts like warp pipes and all these different shortcuts and stuff like that. Then also we got Super Mario Bros. 3, 16-bit version. Once again, do a full playthrough, and I think the controls are a little bit easier in this because the other one was played on the Wii where you're using the Wii controller. This one I actually have on the Super Nintendo, have as the cartridge where I'll be using the Super Nintendo controller. So pretty much the controls that I was used to while growing up. Makes it a little bit easier. Plus, I think they also tried to make the games a little bit easier in the 16-bit version, make them more fun instead of less of a challenge, more fun. 1994, Donkey Kong Country. This game was huge as far as graphics. Huge breakthrough in graphics. I remember when this game came out. Actually, before this game came out, the Nintendo company sent me a video. It's like a 20-minute video introducing the game, showing all kinds of shortcuts. I imagine they probably sent it to a lot of kids. I think my name must have been entered in some Nintendo contest at one point where they got my name to send me this. So anyway, the video is, enough to sell the game to me. I went out and bought it right when I found it. Pretty fun game. It's a lot like Super Mario World as far as gameplay. You got the map screen. In this game you're collecting bananas the same way Mario collects coins. Now in the Super Mario World you can ride Yoshi. In this game you can get characters to ride like this rhino here. weird thing about this game is you got Diddy with you, another character. And now if you get hit as Donkey Kong, he runs off the screen and you're controlling Diddy. But now you can get, well, if you get hit as one character, then you die, but you can go ahead and get the barrel, get Donkey Kong back. You can also switch characters between Donkey Kong and Diddy. And Donkey Kong's stronger, but I think Diddy Kong can jump higher. But some of these enemies, like these big guys here, if you jump on them with Diddy, it's not really going to hurt them. Whereas Donkey Kong can jump on them and kill them. But it's a pretty fun game. Now, sometimes I can get to World 2, Minecart Carnage, I think. And sometimes I get stuck at that board. But if I do pass that board, then I can usually get up to World 4, first board. Hopefully I can get that far, because there's a lot of boards in between those two that I would really like to show. Next game we're going to see, Tecmo Super Bowl 2 Special Edition. This is a very rare game on the Super Nintendo. This is the one game I did not play growing up. I recently bought it. This one would cost $42. Most of the games that I buy, that I bought on the Nintendo and Super Nintendo, I bought within the last year, and usually most games are anywhere between, I'd like to say, well, the cheapest game I ever bought was probably like $3. Or actually, I think $2. Some of the sport games are really cheap at the pawn shops, but ordering online, you can usually find them anywhere between, I'd say maybe $5 to $10. Yet some games that are harder to find might cost up to $20, like North and South. This game was $42, very hard to find. Now, I never even knew this game existed until like a year ago, so I definitely ordered this game. I played it once since ordering it, and I actually won at it. So most of the Tecmo games, the gameplay is pretty much similar, so if you're good at one, chances are you're probably going to be good at the others. This game I think I'll probably play against the Vikings, interdivision game, Packers and Vikings. But as you can see, the graphics are a huge improvement, and I think that's credited to the creators of Donkey Kong, Rare Software, because after Donkey Kong came out, that was 1994. This game also came out in 94. You can tell the huge improvement in graphics. The grass looks a lot more real than it did in the previous game. Now, when I get to the last Tecmo football game, I'm gonna go ahead and show all 5 Tecmo games to see the change in graphics. Next, we got the other Sega Genesis game, Pitfall: The Mayan Adventure. This game's kind of fun, but you get to a point where it gets really hard and it gets annoying. And then I can't get to the end of the board. I can get to the end of the board, but I can't pass it. You got like this, I don't know if it's a cheetah, cougar, some type of wild animal you got to kill. It keeps running back and forth at you and attacking you, and you got to keep shooting it with your slingshot, but I always seem to get killed, so I guess we'll just see how far I can get in this game. Next we got Michael Jordan's Cast in the Windy City. Now this is another platformer game. It's kind of confusing if you never played it, but I watched another guy play this game, Necro VMX, and I like the way he described it as Basketball Castlevania, because it's pretty much got the same characters. Like it's got these basketball-headed zombies, and it's got bats, spiders. It's got floating eyeballs. So a lot of things you've seen in Castlevania they got in here. But your weapons of basketball, you can get all these different basketballs that have different effects. We'll be showing all that. You collect coins too. Your health meter is represented by these little red dots up here. Well, you see one red dot and 2 blue dots. That's because these 2 blue dots, those are 2 hits. Or actually 4 hits, because when you get hit once, your red dot turns into a smaller red dot. You get it a second time, it turns into a blue dot, which is like empty. And you can collect little Gatorades, which fill you up half a dot, or boxes of Wheaties, which fill you up a full dot. But the game is actually kind of fun when you know what you're doing. Real confusing if you've never played it before. I can get past the first 5 stages no problem. Once I get to the other boards, it's kind of harder. And then we got the final of the Star Wars game, Super Star Wars Return of the Jedi. This particular scene we see right here is really hard to beat. Probably take me like 10, 15, 20 tries just to get past it, because you're just flying in the speeder and you gotta stay on this like road here. If you go off this black edge, it's like you fall. So you're sitting there trying to swerve and go down this thing. It's really hard, but it's pretty much just another one of these Star Wars games. It's really hard to beat. Here we got Micro Machines. This one's kind of interesting game where I'm going to be racing against the computer. Now, as I said earlier, I really don't like racing games too much, but this one I like because it's unique. You're playing as these little toy Micro Machine cars, and you're driving on these different tables. Like this one's a workshop table. You got like a kitchen table that's got like, looks like Cheerios laying around and stuff like that. As you can see, this one's got the screws and all these bolts and stuff laying around. It's got like oil spills. It's got like little spots of super glue. Kind of slow you down, so kind of a fun game. Another baseball game. It's going to be a while between games. The last baseball game we've seen was Baseball Stars. This one's MLBPA, so kind of a long gap between the two baseball games, but this one's got the Major League Baseball teams in them, but just like Tecmo Bowl, it's got the cities, but doesn't actually have the names. I'll be playing as the White Sox in this game. Well, actually in the game they're called Chicago A, because there's Chicago American League. You also got Chicago N, which is the Cubs. Same with the Yankees and the Mets. They got New York A and New York N. But I'll be playing as the White Sox against the computer. It does have the professional players, and the players do have their own special abilities. Like Frank Thomas is a home run hitter in this game. You've got Tim Raines and Lance Johnson, who are fast runners in the game. This also has Bo Jackson in the game, which is pretty cool because we've seen him in a football game, in Tecmo Super Bowl and NES. Now we will get to see him in a baseball game. So this one's called MLBPA, by the way. It's released in '94. And it's pretty much got all the rosters and teams from that time. I don't think we're going to be doing a full season of this game, though. It's kind of hard to say. If we do a full season of this game, we're obviously not going to see 162 games. But I'm thinking what we might do if I do decide to do a full season of this game, we'll get to see the White Sox play one game against each American League team, and then we'll see computer versus computer for the National League team. So that way we get to see, well, since the White Sox are the main team, we'd see them multiple times. All the other teams in the game, we'll see them once, and then I'll skip through the other games. And then what we do for the playoffs is we'll just have like whoever goes to the playoffs. If the White Sox go, I'll still play as the White Sox in the playoffs. If they don't go, we'd see the computer playoffs. So I don't know, maybe I will do a full season in between Tecmo games, because like I said, I plan on doing a full season for all the Tecmo Super Bowl games, or all the Tecmo football games, but I don't want to do all back-to-back, like football for all 5 of them. So what I'm planning to do is Tecmo Bowl, and then maybe throw like a baseball game season in there, and do Tecmo Super Bowl, throw another sporting season in there. Not sure yet, because we've also got hockey and baseball we could do. I don't think we're going to see any basketball seasons, because I'm not good at any of the basketball games I have. Anyway, next game, Beavis and Butthead. This game's kind of an interesting platformer game. The cool thing about this, you get to choose which board you're going to play in between the Highland High School, Turbo Mall, 2000, there's the Streets of Highland, and there's Highland Hospital. So I'm going to make sure we get to see each board. I can usually pass this one, and I think it's the Turbo Mall that I can pass. Now the hospital and the streets, I don't think I've ever passed those two, but we're going to make sure we still get to see them. This game might actually be kind of long, because we get to see there's 4 different boards, and each board is a pretty long board too, so it just keeps on going. Here we got another Street Fighter game, Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2, the new challengers. And I think somehow I accidentally got the Japanese version because at the beginning there's like weird Japanese writing. So at the menu screen we really won't be able to understand what it's saying unless you speak Japanese. But anyways, we still get to play and see some of the cool stuff. It's got all the same characters as the previous game, and it's also got some new characters. As we can see here, we got Cammy. She wasn't in the previous game. Ryu, I think he was in every single Street Fighter 2 game. Now we go to NHL 94. So it's been quite a while since we've seen a hockey game too. I think the last one we've seen was Blades of Steel. So we got quite a gap between those games. This one has all the NHL teams. It's got all the players, pretty much like MLBPA. By the way, MLBPA was created by Electronic Arts, which is by this time called EA Sports. This game is also by EA Sports. I'll be the Chicago Blackhawks, of course, and I used to be really good at this game, but over the years, and it's one of those games where if you don't play it for a while, you kind of lose touch with it. So I guess we'll see how it goes. If I could start getting good at these games again, I might do a full season in between the football seasons. Next we're going to see Star Trek The Next Generation, created by Spectrum Holobyte. This game's kind of fun, but if you've never played it before, you're going to be completely lost. I remember the first time I rented it, I had no clue what I was doing. I don't know how I managed to figure it out, because back then they didn't have YouTube, whereas nowadays if I get a game that I'm completely confused on, I can watch someone else play it on YouTube, or get on the internet and kind of figure out how to play it. But somehow I figured it out, and I'll have to explain it when I'm playing it, because it's really confusing when you first start out. You don't know what you're looking at. You go to the view screen, you see all these weird planet names, and you don't know what you're doing, so I'll explain it, show you how to get to different planets, how to do your missions, and you can do all these away teams. I can usually pass the first 3 missions. After that I get lost in the caves. I never did figure my way out of that. And I have a hard time trying to find any like full playthroughs of this game on YouTube, so it's kind of like the mission that I get stuck in is you're in a cave looking for these miners, and I just can't figure out how to... Okay, I should have done that earlier because I noticed it was kind of dark. Now we can see the screen a lot better. Anyways, you're looking for these miners and you're in a cave and it's like a big maze. You can't find your way around, so I'll get to that point and quit. Next we're going to see NHL 95. Now here we are with the 95 games. This one also by EA Sports. Pretty much an upgrade from the NHL 94. And this was actually a huge upgrade because it had so many new features where you could do practice mode. Now NHL 94 had an MLBPA and NHL 94. One of the annoying features they had is when you play a full season, it gives you a password, like a bunch of letters, and the longer you go into the season, the more digits it is. And like in MLBPA, it gets up to the point where you're typing in like 40 digits, and that's really annoying to do. But in NHL 95, one thing that they did, a huge upgrade, is you don't have the passwords. It just saves your progress so you can keep on going. Another thing you could do, you could trade players in this game, which you couldn't do in the previous games. You can also do practice mode, which previous games you can only do like either preseason or full season. Now in practice modes you get to choose how many players you have and how many players your opponent has. So it's a pretty easy way to get good at the game. Kind of helps you have like 5 players on your team, 2 on the other. And then once you get good at that, you can move up to like 5 on 3. And that's pretty much what I did when I first started playing this game. And then once you get good at that, I went to 5 on 5, like full games, and I was able to do pretty good at it. So I might have to do that again to get good at the game. If we do full season of any NHL game, it's probably going to be this one. I mean, there's really no point in doing NHL 94 full season and NHL 95 full season. So I can also do a full season of a PS2 hockey game I got. So anyway, pretty big upgrade in the hockey games by EA Sports. Next we're going to see Star Trek Deep Space Nine, The Crossroads of Time. Now this one's different than the Next Generation. This is more of I want to say it's kind of more like a platformer game. You do a lot more running around. Now in the other one's more 3D. Kind of like you can go up, down, left, right. And this one you're just pretty much left to right. But this game's kind of fun up to a certain point until I can't get any further, then it's not fun anymore. So I'll just see it up to that point. And actually the story in this game is, I think you're under attack by Bajorans because they're mad about the peace treaty between the Cardassians. So if you're familiar with Star Trek Deep Space Nine, you probably understand it more. Next we got NBA Live 95. This is a game I've only played twice. The first time I played as both times I played as the Chicago Bulls. First time I played against one of the worst teams in the league. I forgot who it was. And I was dominating the game. I was up by like 20 points, and all of a sudden we get to the fourth quarter, and the computer makes this amazing comeback. It beat me, so yeah, I was pretty mad the first time I played this game. Second time I played it, I got crushed, so yeah, I'm not very good at this game, so there's no point in seeing a full season of this thing. The only good thing I like about this game is the camera view. It's kind of like, it's not like straight on, like looking straight out into the court from the side. It's not looking from behind the net. It's like kind of a corner view, which is kind of unique for basketball games. That's one thing that's kind of cool. And finally, we have the last game we're going to see on the Super Nintendo, Tecmo Super Bowl 3 Final Edition. Now this game is the one I'm most familiar with because I've had it for so long. Well, actually, I've had many copies of this game for so long, I've broken many of them. Got mad and broke them, but this one's pretty much the top of the line as far as upgrades in Tecmo football games. It's the last one they made. And I think the reason they quit making them is because they came out with John Madden games. The Electronic Arts came out with all these John Madden games. And apparently those were pretty popular, but I never really cared for the John Madden football games because I was never any good at them. I liked all these Tecmo football games, but this one is, I've played a full season many times in this game. Sometimes I've gone undefeated all the way through, so there are some times where I'll lose a game or two here and there, but very rare. Now this game's pretty much got everything. You got injuries, you got fumbles. You can go for 2-point conversions in this game. Now I'm not sure about the previous two games. I guess we'll have to find out when we're actually playing them. But yeah, when you score a touchdown in this game, you can go for a 2-point conversion. Here you can, when you go for a field goal or punt, you can fake. So it's got a lot of cool features that some of the older games didn't have. Now what we're going to do is go back, take a look at, here's the original Tecmo Bowl on Nintendo. This is what the graphics look like on this game. As you can see, there's no like audience, fences in that. Now in the next game, which is Tecmo Super Bowl, they got like a little fence there with the audience, the crowd sitting out there. So this was a pretty big upgrade as far as graphics, but when we get to the Super Nintendo, you go from 8-bit to 16-bit. Much better improvement. But then you go to, this game was 93. Now when you go to the 1994 game, I mean, take a look at the grass, the field between this game and this game. I mean, the grass is a huge improvement. And those games were only 1 year apart. So I'm thinking those Donkey Kong features, whatever they used in Donkey Kong to create the special graphics, I think Tecmo pretty much got the idea on how to make their graphics better too. And then you got Tecmo Super Bowl 3 once again. Looks like this. So Tecmo Super Bowl 2 and Tecmo Super Bowl 3, the graphics are pretty similar as far as the field, so really not a whole lot of change as far as graphics in those two games, but definitely between Tecmo Super Bowl on the Super Nintendo and Tecmo Super Bowl 2 on the Super Nintendo. So that was a look at all of our games coming up on Super Nintendo. We're going to start off our first game with Super Mario World. I'm going to do the full playthrough. No problems beating that game. And most of these other games, actually I'm going to go back and see which games I could beat. Okay, I just paused my video so I can run back and take a look at the games. I think the only games I could beat are all the Mario games and some of the sporting games. Other than that, most of the other games are like the Street Fighter games, the Mortal Kombat games. I can usually get up to a certain point. Pretty much all the games I really can't beat on Super Nintendo, but anyways, we'll get to see enough of them so at least we get the idea of what the games are like. So I hope you enjoyed the intro. Hope you're enjoying the video games. Make sure to subscribe to my channel on YouTube if you haven't done so already, and also make sure to check me out on Facebook, Jay's Retro Video Games, same name as my YouTube channel. Check out my page, click like, and you can get updates of the videos as I post them on there, because I go ahead and I publish my videos on YouTube first, and then I go ahead and post them on Facebook. I also have the photo album on Facebook in case you don't know about it. You go to my Facebook page, you can check my photo album, the video uploads, and what you can do is you can look through the pictures. I've got pictures of every single video uploaded on my channel, and if you see a game that you might recognize or you might like, click on it, and it's got all the information about it. It's got the game title, it's got the game publisher, it's got the year it was published or released, and it's also got a link to the game on YouTube, so you can watch just click on the picture, then you can click on the link and you can watch the video. So make sure to check me out on both YouTube and Facebook. Subscribe and like my page. If you don't, nobody likes you. Hope you're enjoying the games, and I'll see you in the first video on Super Nintendo, which is going to be Super Mario World.